parent who was a student of Christian Science and one who was not, so it was there in the home. But I have to say it wasn't, it wasn't real visible, it wasn't practiced, real visible in the community. So I really had to make it my own when I got to college. I was new in this situation. I needed a sense of home. And I happened to meet up with a few students of Christian Science who were also students there, and we kind of bonded together, and that brought us together, and it enabled us to help each other and encourage each other in our study of Christian Science. So it gave me the tools to work through some of the types of situations that you're faced with in college. One of the healings that I had in my family that really propelled me on this search more was when I married, my husband was not a student of Christian Science. It was all new to him. He didn't know anything about what it was all about. So I decided at that point that I needed to go through the 12-session course called Class Instruction in Christian Science. And soon after that, our first child was born. And she was born with a diagnosed birth defect. And I was told by the physicians at the hospital that she would need to have an operation when she was a little bit older. And this was when I really began to apply Christian Science, because I said, I have learned through the study of science and health and Christian Science that man is perfect. And how could this be, that she would be born with this defect? And so during this period of time when the doctors were saying we have to wait, she's not old enough, but we will have to do this operation. She was born with a cleft palate. We will have to do this operation to correct this missing part of the body. It was my opportunity to really focus on everything that Mary Baker Eddy had to say in Science and Health about perfection. And every day I took some new statement about perfection and I just made it my own. And the result of this was that way before they thought this operation would have to be possible, she was completely healed. And so that was what really propelled me into saying, wow, there's something here. I have to study this more. I have to learn more about it. One of the key ways that she's been a role model to me is that she did never give up. Her path was not smooth. It was not easy. And there were many times when it looked as if things were not going well. And I think for me, that's been the greatest inspiration, because I can look at her life and say, things were not going smoothly for her. Things were not going as she might have expected, but she kept going, and she kept leaning on God, and she kept pursuing her interest in this idea of Christian Science, the spiritual healing. And as we know, when we know the whole story of Mary Baker Eddy, things did work out well for her, but she didn't give up. And I think the other thing that's been important to me is her sense of identity and really coming forward with her potential. None of these things happened until she was in her middle years. And I think for people like myself who have devoted the early parts of their adult life to raising children and volunteering, and then you get to a certain point and you say, but what about me as an individual? Do I have some unique contribution to make? And the fact that she made so many contributions after she had reached a certain point in her life kind of says to me, you know what? There's lots of opportunity left to really express your individuality and make a unique contribution. So those are two areas that have been very helpful. I think the greatest lesson I learned sometime in the late 90s was that there are people in the world who would love to know the ideas of science and health if they knew about it. And I think growing up in Christian Science, I had this concept that you couldn't really share with people unless you gave them the whole package, all about church membership and what this meant. And sometime in the 90s, it came to my attention that you could share this book, Science and Health, with people that were looking for answers. And they didn't have to be students of the Bible. They didn't have to be Christian. They didn't have to be looking for a new church. They just had to have that desire to know that there was a God, and that God was good and was loving and had answers for their problems. So this is what really propelled me into feeling much freer about sharing science and health with people. And that's been my approach ever since then is, if I meet up with somebody who is struggling with some issue and they're looking for answers, I'm able to say to them, I have a book that I think you'd find very interesting. And that's been the path that I've been on and has been very helpful for me. I work in a jointly maintained reading room in downtown New York City. And we have many, many, many people who come in who know absolutely nothing about Christian Science. And I had a woman who came in, I guess, about 2 months ago. And she was so distraught. She had lost her job. She was facing some medical issues and some mental issues. And she was just so disturbed that she didn't know where to turn. We had a conversation, and I tried to explain to her, my concept of God and what I had found in my experience. And she kept saying, but how do you know there is a God? How do you know this will work? And again, I just shared from my experience. But I said to her at that time, this book has answers for you. I don't know all the particulars of your situation, but this book will help you to find healing and to find God. Well, she took the book with her that day, and she came back about 3 weeks later, and she was a different person. She really was. She had a smile on her face. She was all cleaned up. She was happy. She came in and she said, I just can't believe that book. She said, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning and I have to read this book. She says, I wake up, at midnight and I have to read this book. She said, I can't tell you how it's changing my life. So I have seen many examples like that where people have had their first introduction to science and health, and it really has touched their lives. So I'm privileged to have that opportunity to work in a reading room, to be able to do that, and also in my everyday life. That it is an adventure, and that it's unique, and that that we're all doing the best we can to learn how to apply these ideas to our everyday life. And I'm learning that it really is all about my thought, and just to keep journeying on, and to keep turning to these 2 books, the Bible and Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, to find answers, because I know they're there.